Hey, this is Scott Schilling with Scott Schilling Speaks. And I really want you all to learn how to level up your life. And you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my good friend Scott Ferguson. Fergie, and let's level up.
Time to Shine Today podcast, Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and that sucks. Now what is the title of my good friend Scott Schilling's book, which kind of goes through this health scare, which I'm not going to get into it here in the introduction because I want him to tell it. It was just an incredible story, incredible comeback, if you will, and using the lessons that he got from the health scare to help you and other people level up. He was already super high on the chain of speakers and authors and coaches, but now he's just in the stratosphere. He's such a go-giver, such just an amazing human being. He's literally a giant that I stand on the shoulders of to help myself level up. So without further ado, here's the author of That Sucks, Now What? Real-world solutions for getting through what you're going through. Scott Schilling. Let's level up. Time to Shine Today podcast, Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and I got a gentleman here that rocks stages. A fantastic speaker, phenomenal communicator, and he's referred to me by our good mutual friend, Brigitte Hofferly. Just a fantastic human being. His name's Scott Schilling. You can find him at scottschillingspeaks.com, and I will spell it out for you afterwards. So make sure you listen to our information, our show here. I got some awesome questions set up for my boy Scott, and he's an executive vice president and strategic partners for Be Connected, an online platform that combines the attributes on online dating software with search engine capability and social media visibility, connectivity, and branding to create an intentional community of business professionals coming together to do purposeful business with quality and integrity. This guy has accolades upon accolades. You know, he's been an authentic connector for years. He's presented at over 2,500 live events, sharing the stage with General Colin Powell, who I worked for there in Desert Storm, Suze Orman, Jack Canfield, Les Brown, and former First Lady Laura Bush, and many more. He's an internationally accomplished and acclaimed entertaining presenter, which I've watched his YouTube videos. I've kind of looked him up, and the guy rocks the stages. I think that I have energy. This guy is like right up there, if not surpasses me. So, you know, Scotty's purpose is to inspire and empower others to serve humanity through living their life's purpose in spirit, love, and joy. And Scott, thanks so much for coming on. Please introduce yourself to Time to Shine Today podcast, Varsity Squad. But first, what's your favorite color and why?
Purple.
Purple. Royal and regal. Awesome. I love it, man. It's in your color wheel. I see a little bit of purple back there too.
Well, it's the steps on my logo are actually purple.
Yeah, I love
it. My original, or one of my logos over my career, was two S's coming together to make a heart.
Yeah.
Inside a diamond, which was purple.
Nice. Okay.
And its heart-centered selling.
I love it. Heart-centered selling. And also, Squad, there will be a book giveaway at the end if you're watching on YouTube or Vimeo or the other. That Sucks, What Now? We'll have a book giveaway, but you have to listen to the end, and it's Hancock signed by Scott here. And Scott, you shared your story with me when we had an off mic moment last week, but sure. Let's get into a little bit of your story, kind of like how you help people level up, but also that health scare that you went through.
Well, yeah, I've been very fortunate. I started as a young child. Not a small child, but a young child. No, I'm just kidding. So the whole thing is I've been very fortunate to do a lot of different things, from speaking to training to coaching and everything that way. I was actually out in LA on a infomercial shoot. I've also been the front man for 8 infomercials, and I was walking along and all of a sudden my leg stopped. And I looked down and I was standing on 2 tingling stumps. I told my right foot to move. It said no. I said, move. It said no. All of a sudden, I started getting disoriented, started falling backwards. Luckily, there was a railing behind me. I grabbed the railing. Somebody threw a chair underneath me. Was walking with 7 people, 3 of them doctors. Coincidence? I think not.
Oh, wow.
I fell back, and one of them looked at me and said, "What's your telephone number?" And I shouted out my number, and I go, "What the heck would you ask me that right now? Can't you see I can't walk?" He said, "Oh, no reason." Well, I was sweating. I was cold. I was clammy. I was gray. 4 of the 5 key indicators, I was right in the middle of a cerebellar stroke.
Mm,
Cerebellum is responsible for speech, memory, fine motor skills, walking, talking, vertigo. By the grace of God, you see me now. I
right.
was on stage 23 days later.
Wow. Wow. And how scary was that moment, man? I mean, obviously I've been through encounters suffering a little bit from PTSD and whatnot, where there's anxiety that just fires up. And you went through, did you go through kind of a rehab?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
well the moment it's interesting. We actually played a game the other night, and one of the questions was, what's the scariest thing that ever happened to you?
Sure.
As I was going through it, they took me to the emergency room for 5 hours, and they misdiagnosed me with a major migraine and released me.
I remember you saying that. Yeah. Okay.
And that wasn't so then I went on set the next day, shot 3 TV segments,
Oh,
went to a neurologist. He did an MRI the next day. His first words, get your ass to the hospital, check into ICU, you've had a stroke.
wow.
That was the scariest moment, because all of a sudden for 2 days afterwards, I felt like, God took care of me, allowed me to walk and talk and do the things that I was doing and be filmed and all that. But
Mm,
all of a sudden he said, check into ICU, you've had a stroke.
wow.
And now I became like to me, a China doll.
Right.
It was like all of a sudden I knew that I was broken, but I didn't know how I was broken, because 2 days earlier they said I wasn't broken.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And so that was that scary moment, really driving from the hotel to the hospital to get under care. I felt like once I got there, once I got to my room, I was okay.
Right.
But it was that process in between, that not knowingness.
Right.
And I think, quite frankly, how many people are living through that the last couple of years?
Sure.
It's not
Absolutely.
the event, it's the not knowing how you're going to come through the event that it
Right.
becomes that scary part.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you went through, I'm glad you backtracked and said that, because I remember you telling me that you had went and been misdiagnosed. I'm glad the squad gets to hear it now. How about getting on that stage 3 weeks later, a little over 3 weeks later, and like, was there any anxiety in the back of your mind? Because I mean, you're a polished professional speaker, and I'm working my way to that. Was there? And like I have a trampoline, which my squad knows, the people that see me speak, I use it actually as a release kind of before I go out there. Then I take it out on stage with me and it's there. But what kind of anxiety was ramped up saying, oh, shoot, man, I hope I don't have another one on stage?
There actually was none of that, believe it or
Really?
not. I mean,
Okay.
I was excited to be back on stage, but a funny story at that event, again, it was 23 days after the initial stroke,
Sure.
which is unheard of, by the way. I mean, I'm phenomenally blessed. I
Yeah.
do not, I give God all the credit for that, for bringing me through it all. But while I was talking, there were about 100 business women in the room, and I was sharing on being an entrepreneurial. And I said, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you just got to fight through. I mean,
Sure.
23 days ago, I had a full blown cerebellar stroke. And then I just kept on going on with what I was training on or speaking about. And a woman walked up to me afterwards and said, did you say you had a stroke 23 days ago? And I said, yeah, actually I did. She said, well, people don't come out like you.
Right.
I said, well, if you say so, why do you say that? She said, I work for the American Heart and Stroke Association.
Mm,
I said, awesome, then use me. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, if my story is that unique, then utilize it for the good of the American Heart and Stroke Association, and also anybody else. Let's help educate them
wow.
that death is not the only choice in this.
Love it. I love
And we
it.
did, and we actually put 3 galas together. We raised $750,000
What?
utilizing the negative event.
That is amazing. And it's got, I know that, you played some ball at Iowa.
Go
I'm a Big Ten guy. I'm a Sparty. I hate Michigan. I hate Ohio State. I'm a Sparty. And I don't hate Iowa at all. I think it's a
Coldest game I ever
school.
played was at Michigan State.
Okay. And I would go to Dan Gable's wrestling camps when I was a kid, and I loved it there. But like, how much of you being an athlete in the past help you mentally kind of get over? Because I mean, did you play for Hayden Fry?
I did.
Okay, so
I did.
he's a mofo, man. He was a tough guy. He put you through a lot. So how much of that background and having the structure and the discipline helped you? Like, I know it's kind of a miracle what happened to you, but how much of it does that implant in your mind, even throughout your whole life, being an athlete and then having success?
Absolutely, all of it played a role. There's no doubt, and being with Coach Fry and the entire coaching staff that was there, Bill Snyder, who went to K-State, Barry Alvarez that went to Wisconsin, Dan McCarney, Iowa State, and North.
What a coaching tree!
I mean, we had the most amazing coaching staff there was.
Yeah,
but those guys built and rebuilt Iowa as a winner and Rose Bowl in a couple of years, that kind of thing. Right. But one of the stories that I love to tell is one of my greatest life lessons, because I was a kicker and punter. And at the end of practice, we'd go into a fast mode. The team would set on the 25 in the middle, and you'd line up and you'd kick it. And then you'd move to the 30 on the right hash and kick it back to the middle on the 35, go over to the other hash on the 40. Anyway, 8 kicks, you'd serpentine. And the last one was 55 from the angle. And I drilled all 8 down the pipes.
Wow.
And Coach Fry chewed my butt after every one of them. And after the 8th one from 55 on the angle, tough angle, long kick, all the other stuff, right? And the 8th one, we're rushing, doing it all. And I spun around. I said, Coach, I don't get it. I just drilled 8 kicks down the pipes and you chewed my ass after every one of them.
Right.
Typical Coach Fry style.
Right.
Son, don't concern yourself when I'm chewing your ass. Only concern yourself when I stop, because then I don't give a crap.
Wow.
That's the life lesson right there, is when people are on you, working to improve you.
Yeah.
Don't take every bit of it and thank them for it.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, it's when they don't give you the feedback,
right,
that they've stopped caring. That's when you've lost.
Love it. I love it. That's that's just a knowledge nugget right there that, I share with even my squad. Like, I recommend, if I even have to, which is few and far between, it's in private, but I learned, but I'm like, listen, man, if I dress you up and down, it means I freaking care. And you're doing something great. And I just want to make sure that you keep it up. That's fantastic, man. So let's get into leadership a little bit. Like, what do you feel then makes a great leader or a great coach?
Well, a great leader at one time had to be a great follower. Wow. They had to be somebody who took that input, that feedback. The chances of you making the right move the first time are almost negligible.
Right.
But the only way you can gain any feedback is by taking an action. You're going to be off course far more than you're ever on course in your life. It's not a problem to be off course. What you should strive to do is be off course less often, less far.
Wow.
Because you're gonna zigzag your way. I mean, think about it. I live here in Dallas, Texas. A jet takes off at DFW headed for Honolulu, and the pilot comes on about an hour out and says, ladies and gentlemen, I know you thought we were going to land in Honolulu, but we had southerly trade winds, so welcome to Anchorage.
All right.
It's not what he does.
No.
He's course correcting the entire time. So leadership is like that.
Love
right?
it.
In order to be a great leader, first of all, you had to be a great follower. You had to be a great observer. You had to learn. Like I said, I had a whole new appreciation for Coach Fry after he dressed me down. Because as a follower, I said, oh, here's somebody who actually cares about me.
Right.
But that's a great part of leadership. Number one, you start as the follower, you learn, you're mentored, I've written checks to 19 mentors in my career. And I said one thing at the start of every one of them: give me everything you got and I won't keep it. Don't hold back anything. I'll share everything you put into me with my students and my clients.
Love it. Pay it forward, man.
Absolutely. And that's the part about leadership is, and one of my great mentors, he said, always give them everything you got for 2 reasons. Number one, more than likely, they won't remember what you said. And number
True.
two, even if they do remember, they won't implement it.
Right.
And so the point is that, everybody's not everybody, so many people sit in this lack mentality.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you my proprietary work. Trust me, for whatever reason, you could have the best widget in the history of ever. And all of a sudden they'll try to change the widget because they want to put their stamp on it.
Right. Right.
Use the damn widget as it works and go make it happen. Right.
Love it.
Or they'll just be so lazy they won't do it in the first place.
Wow,
So again, leadership is observation, it's sharing, it's giving everything you got. It's not holding anything back for any reason.
Do you ask the people that you coach to pay forward what you are giving them?
Absolutely.
Good. Okay.
I said none of this. The reality is there's a pretty good book written 2,500 years ago that's got most of the instructions in it. Right.
Absolutely.
And the fact of the matter is that there's not all that much new if you really think about it.
There's not.
There are new takes on it and things like that. So again, to play in that ego space of this is mine, is kind of silly, actually, if you think about it.
And it's funny. It's like, that's why I'm writing the title of one of my books is Regurgitate. And basically, like, every time I'm coaching a client or whatnot, I'm regurgitating what I kept, from standing on the shoulders of the giants that have helped me along. If you look at, like, say, everyone really knows the name Tony Robbins, like, he regurgitated Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn regurgitated Earl Nightingale, back to Wallace Wattles, all the way back to Aristotle, Hippocrates, and everything else. So like you just said, it's everybody wants to put their own swing on it. So that's what I say, give till it hurts so good. You know what I'm saying? And then they're going to do with it as they please and not hold anything back. Thank you for saying that. So when you're working with, say, a company and they come to you for leadership and to help them level up, what is some of your secret sauce that you use, if you don't mind sharing, Scott, that maybe helps them find their blind spot?
Well, the first thing you do is identify that you got blind spots. Many people, believe it or not, don't think that they have them. That might apply to somebody else, but it doesn't apply to us.
Sure.
It's like, are you kidding me?
Right.
I was brought in to a Fortune 500 company a while back, and they say, our guys, man, I don't know that you can help our guys. They're so good at acquiring business. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, well, then why am I here? And they said, well, because our business is decreasing on a monthly basis. And I said, well, you just told me your guys are amazing at acquiring new business. Oh yeah, we acquire, like 1,500 new accounts a month.
Sure.
And I said, so you acquire 1,500 new accounts a month and your business is going down. Yeah. Okay. I got the solution. They said, what do you mean? You've already got it figured out? I said, I absolutely have it figured out. He said, how are you going to train our guys that are really good at acquiring people to acquire more? I said, well, that's a bad assumption because that's not what I'm going to do.
Right.
They said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to shut the back door. They said, what? Well, you haven't even told me how many accounts you're losing on a monthly basis, but it's the only thing that's possible. It's called math.
Right. True.
Right. You're acquiring 1,500 and your business is going down. That means you have to be losing more than that. How many are you losing a month? 2,200. I said, good. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put systems in place that shut the back door. Because then when they're even better at acquiring new business, you're going to get a double.
Right.
You're going to save the business from the backside. You're going to add more business to the front side. Guess what happened? Exactly
retention. That. Yeah. I love it. So
Scott, I mean, some of the stuff is, don't look for what everybody else looks for. I mean, if you want a real secret, don't look for what most people think are the obvious.
Sure.
Because it's not necessarily the obvious.
It's not because they're blinded by that, hence the blind spot. So Scott, when you're maybe in that discovery conversation with somebody that might employ you, is there any good question that you wish they would ask you but never do?
Sometimes, I had one go, "Do you have a workbook?" I said, "No." And they go,
Right.
"Well, the other guys that were in here, pitching us have a workbook. How come you don't have a workbook?" I said, "You really want to know the answer?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Because I've never seen a workbook work." And they go, "What do you mean?" I said, "A workbook's theory.
Yeah.
You're
Yep.
not hiring me to bring in theory. You're hiring me to bring in action."
Action, baby. Yes.
And
Yes.
so it's if there's any question to ask, the question is, quite frankly, how are you going to accomplish this task?
Sure.
Or how are you going to go at it differently than other people are going to do it?
I love that.
Because
Yes.
the reality is, if you want the same old, go get the same old, same old.
Yeah.
I don't do same old. I'll give you one. We took this client from 8 million to 100 million in about 5.5 years. Is that pretty good? Most people would think that that's a pretty good growth,
Sure.
right? Well, I mean, when I first got there, they said, "How are you going to do this?" And I shared how I'd do it. And they said, "Well, we don't want it done that way. We want to do it our way." I said, "Good. Okay. Then have fun."
Right.
And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm not your guy."
Right. Yeah.
And they
Not
said,
afraid to walk away from it. Love it.
"What do you
Okay.
mean?" And I said, "I will not do that presentation that way, nor will I train everybody else to do it."
Sure.
And I said, "If I can rewrite the presentation, if I can do it this way, if I can implement it and do the training based on that,
Sure.
we will make it work."
Right.
And the
Love it.
CEO founder said, "I don't believe that'll work." I said, "Great. Well, then we're at a standstill.
Right.
Here's what I'm going to say to you. If you want me, give me 90 days, let me put it in path. And if it doesn't show progress in that period of time, get rid of me."
Right.
Well, 5.5 years later, we'd grown it from 8 million to almost 100 million a year.
Love it, man. That's awesome. You put the proof in the pudding and willing to walk away from it. That's a great leader as well. So, Scott, have you seen the movie Back to the Future?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's get that DeLorean with Marty McFly. Let's go back to the Double Deuce, the 22-year-old Scott. What kind of knowledge nuggets, that's what we call him here at Time to Shine today, what kind of knowledge nuggets would you drop on the 22-year-old Scott to maybe help him shorten the learning curve, level up, and blast through just a little quicker?
Well, understand you're not bulletproof.
Yeah, buddy.
Like what 22-year-old doesn't tell himself that, right? You got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yes.
There's a lot of expertise to be learned ahead. Keep your eyes open.
Yes.
Understand that those that you meet on the way up are still going to be there once you get up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're due respect, honor, and dignity.
Thank you for saying that, man.
Because they probably helped you get there.
Yes. 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 Absolutely.
I mean, it's really about respecting and honoring the process.
Yes.
Pea and vinegar is great, but you'll find out as you get more mature, that's a code word for older. You'll find out that the pea and vinegar doesn't work quite as well.
Doesn't, man. You're so right. And I'm a lesson of that. And so, Scott, how do you want your dash remembered? That little line in between your incarnation date and your expiration date, your life date and your death date. How does Scott want his dash remembered?
Here's a guy who really cared, who gave it his all, who utilized every bit of the talents and capabilities God's granted him to do good for himself, for his family, and for the world.
Yes, man. That's amazing. So I'm taking notes, brother.
It's all good.
This is amazing.
Sorry.
This is such good stuff. And I love the sincerity. I love that you're vulnerable. I love your transparency, man. That's just amazing, dude.
Well,
I love it.
That's the key. It's funny. You'll see this when we work together on stage. I said there's typically an over and under of when I'll cry. There's not a there's it just there's typically something that is so emotional or hits such a point,
Mm,
and quite frankly, I never know when it is. I never know what it is.
right,
I never know what causes me to get to that place. But I love the fact that I do. And if somebody doesn't, okay,
right.
I'm good
That's
with
fine.
that.
You're good with it. I love it. You leave it all out there. So, Scott, what do you think people might misunderstand the most about you?
Um, because there have been periods of my career where I worked to be a perfectionist,
Hmm.
that I was striving so hard to get it so exactly right
Mm,
that they felt I maybe became unapproachable or something to that level, because
sure.
it was like they thought it was really maybe ego based,
Yeah.
and it never really was.
Right.
It was, you know, let's quote Les Brown, live full, die empty,
Yes.
right? It was a desire to be so good that, it may have seemed, maybe I wasn't as talkative or as this or that in those
Right.
days.
Right.
And then somebody, by the grace of God, walked up to me one day after a talk and said, "You are so freaking good at that presentation." But he
Mm,
said, "Can I share something with you?" And he goes, and I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, it might hurt." I said, "Good." He said, "You're kind of plastic."
mm,
He said, "You're so good that I don't feel you."
mm.
And from that day on is when I went, "Oh my God, it's about the connection along with the delivery."
Yes.
And I never wanted to, I never purposefully lost that,
Right.
but
Right.
I had, because I was striving for perfection.
Yeah.
And I went back into, so I'll give you an example. One time I was in front of, I don't know, 20,000 people,
Sure.
and I lost track of where I was in the presentation.
Did that. Right.
Right. So here
Right.
I am, I'm in the round, and I'm doing this, and all of a sudden I blank, and I look straight down, and I start laughing, and I look back up, and I went, "Oh, sorry, I just told myself a joke." And then I carried on.
Right. Right.
And so it was that point of not taking yourself so seriously and just having fun. And the response was so great. It taught me such a great lesson
Yeah.
that, quite frankly, the people in the seats are rooting for you as much or more for
They
you
are, dude.
than
Yes.
you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a great squad that I travel with now that we're speakers, and just knowing that that's in the I've lost trains of thought. And one time I admitted it up there. I'm like, you know what? Can someone bring me back to where I
Yeah.
was? And then the guy just yelled out happiness. And I was like, thank you, brother. And I
Yeah.
just rolled with it, but it was my spot. So if we took out anything electronic, and that includes cell phones, tablets, computers, any of that jazz, and let's take out anything we need to live, like air, food, water, or I said food, air, water, gravity. What are three things Scott can't live without?
Wow. Connection with others.
Thank you. I knew you were going to say that, dude. That's what I say every time someone asks me that. And I knew it. Also, okay, connection.
You know, connection, just,
You're a reader, man. I can see you being a reader. So,
well, yeah, I mean, well, I'm a studier. I'm a learner.
yeah, exactly. Okay.
I mean, I love learning. So,
Love it, man.
so you can't take observation away from me.
There you go.
So that wouldn't work,
Mhm.
and then, just, I don't know what, just what came to me was the opportunity to do good.
Love it. I love it. That's three strong things. Although you left out chicken wings, man, because chicken wings is something that I just can't live without. Hey, all right, Scott, let me answer this for me. As abbreviated as possible, but what is Scott's definition of a life well lived?
Leaving it, playing full out, leaving it all on the field.
Live full,
Live
die
full, die
empty.
empty.
Love it, love it, love it. Time to shine today, podcast Varsity Squad. We are back, and I'm so stoked to be able to go through our leveling up lightning round. My good friend Scott Schilling here. And Scotty, you and I could talk 15, 20 minutes, an hour on each one of these questions, but you got 5 seconds with no explanations. They can all be answered that way. You ready to level up?
Fire away.
Let's do it, man. What's the best leveling up advice Scott's ever received?
Listen.
Yeah. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Being quiet.
Love it. Other than your own book, That Sucks, What Now? If you saw me and like, man, Fergie's in his doldrums, man, I want to give him a book. What book is it?
Success Principles, Jack Canfield.
There you go. What's your most commonly used emoji when you text?
Smiley face.
Love it. Nicknames growing up?
Ooh, some not for air. Kicker.
Kicker. All right.
That's actually my license plates.
All right. Chess, checkers, or Monopoly?
Monopoly.
All right, my man. Your go-to flavor for ice cream when you order up?
Oh, mint chocolate chip.
There you go. I mean, we're definitely hanging. I love me some mint chocolate chip. So there's a sandwich called the Scotty Schilling. What's on that sandwich, brother?
Man, turkey, ham, Swiss cheese, lettuce, onions, green peppers.
Love it, man.
Tomatoes.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Favorite charity and organization you like to give your time or money to?
Well, there's 21 in my first book, but it started with Habitat for Humanity.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Last question. We can elaborate on this one a little bit, but what's the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
Got to be 80s.
There you go. Big hair, don't care. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, Scotty, how can we find you, brother?
Email me, scott@scottschilling.com. You can go to scottschillingspeaks.com. Scott Schilling 8 behind any of the social medias. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it. It's all Scott Schilling and the number 8.
Love it. Love it. And that'll all be in the show notes, squad. So you can go there right when we're done with this interview, but don't go yet, because I'm going to talk to Scott here about his awesome book, That Sucks, What Now? When did you write this, and who is the reader that you're really wanting to pick this up and change your life?
Well, I wrote it after my near-death experience, and it was because there was so much mis and disinformation about the things that I was looking up for myself. Remember, I lived through something most people don't live through. And so every time I was looking for a piece of information, it was, well, you should be dead, but because you're not, we're going to tell you you're limited. Not the kind of stuff I wanted to see.
Right.
So I really wrote it to share the lessons and the solutions I found coming through various difficult things that happened to me in my life. I severed an Achilles tendon.
Sure.
I was told I'd never walk right or play sports again.
Okay.
I said, I was on the field 75 days later.
Wow.
I mean, unheard of, right? And it's because of the fire you learn. So the book is for those who need hope and inspiration, need solutions. They are looking for, how do I turn this pile of manure into a horse underneath it?
Sure.
Right? You know, how do I take and see, I don't believe in the word failure.
Sure.
There is no such thing unless you include the word quit.
Right.
But failure is not failure. Failure is simply a learning opportunity that you've uncovered.
Yes.
So take, and there are 5 questions that I train all my clients and students to use in the book on how to turn anything from a potential negative event to a positive event by asking these 5 questions.
Dude, I love that you put that in there as questions, because, you know, we can do affirmations to a blue in the face, right? But there's always that seed of doubt. And as human beings, our brains are wired to be problem solvers. So when you can ask yourself a question, even if you don't think about it the rest of the day, your brain is like, wait a minute, there's a question I need to answer. And I love that you put it in 5 questions. And Scott, we got to kind of jump here and scoop, but if you could do me one last solid and leave us with one last knowledge nugget we can take with us, internalize, and take action.
Well, what popped into my head is the Zig Ziglar quote that forever changed my life. And that is, you can have everything in life you want when you help enough other people get what they want.
Yes.
Now that became my mantra and really my credo to this day. Fortunately, I knew Zig and was able to have those conversations
That's
with
awesome,
him.
dude.
But find your thing, whatever that might be. It might be a Jim Rohn quote. It might be a Tony Robbins quote. It might be a Scott Ferguson quote. It might be one of those that gives you that guiding light. And it is, if people sometimes ask about me, they'll go, "Oh, he's that guy who Zig impacted so much."
Right.
That's a great way to be remembered.
Right.
And it's a great way to honor such an amazing man.
Yeah, he was fantastic. I didn't have the opportunity. I got to speak with him one-on-one for about 3 minutes one time, and it was enlightening just in the 3 minutes. And that's awesome that you were able to have a relationship with him. That's fantastic. And squad, you've really literally just got like a little cliff note bit piece of a masterclass from my good friend here, Scott Schilling, who, he brought up that not knowing can be the scary part. So go back and really listen to what he spoke about that. And he says, like, if someone's dressing you up or dressing you down, a lot of times that will come from love. And so remember, if they stop doing that, that's when people really don't care. So understand that constructive criticism is good. Use it to level up. He reminded us that a great leader was at one time a great follower and a great observer. He'll tell you that a great leader understands, it'll make you understand that off course is okay. Just be off course less often and less far. And a great coach and leader will help you the course correct. And if you're giving to somebody and mentoring, like I say, the more you mentor, the more immortal you become. And I didn't say that, Bobby Knight said it, but I use that. And when I do mentor people, I give everything, because what Scott here said, they're not going to implement everything that you tell them, no matter if you give them the blueprint. A lot of times they're going to try to make it their own. And that's okay. It's almost like a homage to you. If you're going to hire a coach, ask them, how are they any different than anybody else? Do they actually care about the end game? Begin with the end in mind, like the good old Cubby guy said. And that's what Scott will do. Look at your company. He'll begin with the end in mind and see you, and then put you on a trajectory, just like he said about that plane flying out of Dallas, getting to Honolulu. He'll get you to Honolulu with those course corrects. He'll want you to remember, if you're younger, or even if you're a little bit older, that you're not bulletproof. Listen. Like Scott says, and I always say in all my podcasts, God gave you one mouth and two ears for a reason. And if you're stuck on something, like my good friend Leah Woodford says, get your asking gear. There's people out there that have been there, especially if you respect those people on the way up. Remember, they've been there, and use their knowledge to help you level up. And like Scott said, always pay that forward. He's going to be someone that lived full and died empty, like our boy Les Brown says, but he's also going to slide across home plate, bumped and bruised, but he's going to score. And the bumps and bruise come from the stroke, comes from the Achilles tear, comes from all that stuff. He's always persevered and leveled up, and also he's going to be remembered as someone that provided hope, inspiration to people that need solutions. And also someone that really turned that lemon into lemonade. He can take that. And, he's reminded us also that failure is a learning opportunity, and failure is not infinite unless you quit, or it's not finite unless you quit. Okay. And like he got from his friend and somebody that I respect, Zig Ziglar, that find your thing, find your niche, help others, and you'll get what you want if you seriously give until it hurts so good. And that's what my guy Scott here does. I have notes upon notes, and I hope that you do too. Make sure you pick up his book, That Sucks What Now? It'll be in the show notes. Scott, you level up your health, you level up your wealth. Not you need another varsity letter, but you earned yours here at Time to Shine today. I'm blessed. I cannot wait to collaborate with you, learn from you, and rock a stage with you soon, brother. I love your guts.
Looking forward to it, man.
All right. Talk soon, my man.
Thanks, all.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine Today podcast. Proudly brought to you by Sutter & Nugent Real Estate Excellence, who can be reached at 561-249-7266 and online at www.sutterandnugent.com. If you are a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on Time to Shine Today, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also there, you will see our recommended resources. We hope that you will support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've been listening to, it'd be great if you could just give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's our time to shine.